So tonight we had a triple threat match that was penciled in for the main event match. It was between Tiffany Stratton, Jade Cargill, and Nia Jax. The winner was obviously going to go and face Stephanie McIntyre in the Crown Jewel match, the champion versus champion match. I think going into this match, I think everybody kind of, assumed that Tiffany was going to retain. But I will say one thing, because it's the most recent thing that I just watched here, was the main event. So I will say one thing about the main event was the actual main event itself was fine. I thought it was a fine match until we got to the closing moments of the match, because I don't know where in the match this happened, but I think Nia Jax busted up Jade Cargill with something or other, because even Nia said it herself that she busted up Jade Cargill open, and then we see this shot of Jade with a bloodied face. And that kind of, stopped everything for a second there, because, in WWE nowadays, when somebody legitimately gets their head busted open, like we just saw it with Jey Uso, right? When somebody legitimately gets busted open and it's not sort of gimmicked, I guess you could say, they take that shit serious as fuck, right? They stop the match, they stop everything just to clear up the blood wound, because obviously they don't want the bad PR, I guess you could say, even though it's wrestling, you know what I mean? It's blood, who cares? But, regardless, we had this situation come up here, and then there was a pinfall. I think Tiffany hit something on Nia Jax, and she went for the pinfall, and the ref counted 1, 2, stopped her count there, legitimately just stopped. Like, there wasn't even an explanation for this. The referee just stopped. She pointed at Nia Jax's shoulder as if her shoulder was up, but it clearly wasn't. Commentators really didn't know how to defend this. The crowd was pissed. Obviously, they were booing this shit. Eventually, I think Tiffany hit the moonsault on Nia Jax and got the win. So now it's official: Stephanie McIntyre against Tiffany Stratton at Crown Jewel. Like I said before, this was a fine match. It wasn't the greatest match of all time, but until we got to the actual finish here, I would say this match was passable. But man, that finish really just kind of left me confused, left everybody confused, and almost deflated in a sense. We also got the Sami Zayn Open Challenge. It was answered here tonight by NXT's own Javon Evans. I've seen little of Javon Evans. I think I saw one match he had with Randy Orton a few months ago. But definitely this was probably the best thing on the entire show here. They had a really fun match here. Obviously, Sami ended up retaining after a Haluva kick and a Blue Thunder Bomb, and he got the win. I was skeptical at first with the Sami Zayn US title stuff, because I was like, Sami Zayn at this point in time really feels or felt kind of stale, like he needed something. Because there was a point there where I think everybody was just kind of over the Sami Zayn shtick. But I think now with the US title run, the US title Open Challenge, it's obviously a nod to John Cena, but at the very least it helps Zayn. It gives Zayn something to do, right? Now, who eventually takes the title off of him, I don't know. That's, anybody could, anybody's a challenger at this point. Anybody could potentially be that man. But for right now, I'm really enjoying what Sami Zayn is doing with the US title. The next thing that I actually enjoyed on the show was the opening segment, the opening promo between Cody Rhodes and Paul Heyman. When Cody Rhodes gets somebody who he can actually bounce off of and actually have something to really say against, like we saw that with Seth this past Monday, where they brought up a lot of things where it legitimately felt like one of the better promos that you've seen with Seth for the past couple of months. I feel like Heyman and Cody, obviously there's never going to be a situation where they have a bad promo with each other. Tonight, Cody really brought up the fact of Heyman came out there with Brock at WrestlePalooza, and he looked really happy to be there with him. He said it looked like it wasn't just a one-off. He said, who was he talking to in that given point in time? Was he talking to an oracle? Was he talking to a wise man? Or was he talking to an advocate? Obviously, he's planting the seeds of potentially maybe a War Games thing here with Brock and the Vision against Cody and a group of baby faces there. I don't really know, because it's been reported that Brock isn't going to be around. And then eventually we got Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. The Braun Brons come out there to try to, I guess, intimidate Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes tells him that, you may have Heyman right now, but nobody's been able to figure him out. Eventually, this becomes a brawl, and we have Randy Orton come out here and make the save. Again, Randy's eyeing the title. I feel like they've been teasing us with this eyeing the title thing for like 2 years at this point. So I'm like, hey man, you got to give it to us at some point, because our patience is wearing thin. And as far as like Drew McIntyre goes, we saw him come out here with a cast on his foot. He came out here, he blamed the referee, he blamed Cody Rhodes. Because Cody Rhodes was being a politician. Cody Rhodes pays off the referees, whatever you want to call it. Eventually we see Jacob Fatu, which we haven't seen Jacob Fatu I think since SummerSlam. So that was what, like a month, maybe a month and a half at this point. We saw him come out here, and he's over as hell still, obviously, Jacob Fatu. He called out Drew for being a whiny bitch, for complaining, for putting his failures on everybody else but himself. And this eventually leads to Jacob Fatu standing tall over Drew McIntyre. I don't know if this is a crown jewel match, like if they're going to do this for crown jewel, because Cody is obviously occupied with Seth at the moment for that PLE. So what do you do with Drew at this point? At the very least, I would have Drew lose that match and then potentially cost Cody the crown jewel match afterwards. So then maybe we could eventually build to a Survivor Series rematch. I don't really know what the play is here. And one last thing, we had the Melodome Miz against the Street Profits here for the #1 contenders to face the Wyatt Six eventually down the road, they mentioned. I was kind of actually pulling for a Melodome Miz. I know they're, telling the story of, dissension here between the Miz and Melo. And obviously there was a spot here where the Miz tagged himself in after Melo was essentially going to get the win here. And then the Street Profits put away the Miz, with Melo not even making an attempt to save the Miz, to save the match. So obviously they're telling the story of the Miz and Melo being at odds, but I kind of, wished that they would have, pulled the trigger on Melo and Miz, because I feel like the Street Profits and the Wyatt Six, we just saw that, we should give that a rest for a little bit until you actually want to have them win back the titles. But I don't know, that's just my opinion at this point in time. But let me know what you guys thought of SmackDown here tonight. Let me know what your thoughts and your opinions were. And until next time, I will see all of you on the next one.